outlined by the ABA, as Linda Hewitt, and of course as a past chairman of the ABA. And I think one thing we all know about Linda, those of us who know her, she's not a lady who actually lets things stand in her way. She does address problems pretty straightforward. And Linda, I ask you please to outline your case. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank those of you that turned up today. Thank you very much for coming. This is a huge issue. This is about your future. This is about a country that has mining and resources issues worrying our industry as well as just what's happening within our own industry. We really have got to, we've got to treat this so seriously. It's so sad to see so few people in the room. Thank God you people came. This is a terribly serious issue. Both sides of government are listening to us. Both sides of government are taking notice of what's happening here and what has been happening in the last few months and what will happen in the future. Important what we do today. Do not believe this is not terribly important. I'll start with my speech now. In November 2011 at the MLA AGM in Longreach, Cattle Council stood up at the end of the meeting and asked to move that Cattle Council be restructured by industry. They were struggling to do their job and the reasons were many. Number one, they were short on funds. The Pig Industry Council that represents the $56 million grass-fed beef industry was short on funds. That's just appalling thing. They have only about 4 staff to manage a national industry on very limited funds. They have a very limited budget and have at times had to go hand in hand to MLA. And in actual fact, the only money they get is as a service agreement, as Jen said. So that what they say is they go to the MLA and ask for our money back, and this is how we're going to use it. We can't even just get it because it's our money. And I take on board what Jen says about it being a tax and things, but the point is that so-called tax is still going to MLA instead of to the Cattle Council of Australia to tell MLA what to do with the money. Now, and I'd just like to put Jen up on one other thing. Jen did say that they get $420,000 a year from the state farming organisations. Well, actually they don't. Most of the state farm organisations for the last few years have been so broke themselves that they haven't paid Cattle Council that $420,000. It is what they pay.
It's not what they should pay.
It's not what they should pay, okay. So what I'm trying to say is they themselves are broke and they're not paying Cattle Council. So Cattle Council is literally over a barrel. And the inadequacies of Cattle Council, and please get this right, I'm not here criticising, I'm just stating facts. I'm not criticising, and people have, including the media, have hammered the ABA about state farm organisations. We are not against these people. If we don't have state farm organisations, we're in real trouble. And the biggest trouble with state farm organisations is there's 2 problems. One is people are not joining them. And number 2 is they have such a huge mandate that if you wrote down everything that a state farm organisation has to do for their rural communities, so it's not just the beef industry, for the rural communities, the rural people they represent, if you wrote down every point, you'd have a list going around the showground fence. So these people are limited on money themselves, and they're limited on people and the number of people they can employ and the number of people that want to work for them. They're trying to cover hundreds of jobs from weeds to bus to telecommunications to whatever state boundaries, and trying to run the national beef industry through our organisation, Cattle Council of Australia. So the limitations are endless. So I'm not at any time criticising Cattle Council of Australia or criticising the state farm organisations. I want to make that very clear. But I am criticising the structure that we've got that's been set up for us. And we have to pull this out of the line. Now, there's been hundreds of situations, but the situation for live export highlighted the inadequacies that have shown up with Cattle Council unable to completely represent us because, as Brad told you earlier, of the situation under the Red Meat Advisory Council. That was just one of them. Anyway, following this agreement at the Longreach AGM 2 years ago to restructure And remember, this restructure came from Cattle Council themselves. ABA and others engaged with Cattle Council in meetings around Australia. These meetings culminated in a meeting in Canberra 1 year ago, and at that meeting it was decided that we would set up a writing group to write the new structure. And I'm going to be very bluntly honest here. I was terrified it was going to be left in the hands of people who are already there. So I really pushed for Cameron McIntyre and Apple Economy. Cameron McIntyre from the AMPG group and Apple Economy from ABA to be on the writing group, along with the other people that were there. This writing group, out of their own time, their own money, and consulted everyone. I mean, you just got to talk to Cameron, Tony McCormack from Stanbroke and Apple and John Wilder. So they spoke with everyone, consulted all aspects of the industry, spent an enormous amount of their personal time, an enormous amount of time, an enormous amount of effort, an enormous amount of thinking, studying, talking to people, and put it into, all at their own expense, and designed an option that included a democratically elected Cattle Council of Australia in control of the expenditure and or management of the 56 odd million that is raised every year in grass-fed levies alone. Of the $140 to $60 million a year that MLA gets, 56 of that comes from you alone, from the grass-fed producer. Just our portion of that money. So this option, written up, it was called option option C light. It was in the end because it was massaged and talked about and rearranged in further meetings. This option was then taken to Cattle Council. Now remember, Cattle Council is made up from boards of the state farms organisations. The state farm organisations will say to you, we own Cattle Council. That's right, from straight up. Because the state farm organisations represent all rural industries, not just beef. We own Cattle Council, so you can't tell us what to do. This option was taken to Cattle Council and they rejected it. And later I can go into a lot of detail if you want to. And to me, the thing that came out, the most obvious thing that came out of that meeting was, and I started to get really frustrated, and I can tell you ADA was determined to go in and be a part of this, to work it, to make it work. And did we cop some criticism? A lot, not some, a lot of criticism from producers. What are you doing with them? But then there's another 50% of the producers who say, you should be in the room with them, you should be talking to them. You cannot keep everyone happy. But to me, and I'm sorry if I offend you saying this, but to me, it seemed as though Cattle Council, especially the main board, not the cattle board within Cattle Council, the cattle board, within the state farm organisations, I'm sorry, just wanted the structure to stay the way it is. They just wanted permission to refinance. They were not happy about having independence on it, and they certainly were not happy about having to step back themselves from not being on the board. When this writing group option was refused by Cattle Council, there was a bit of quiet for a long time, and all of a sudden, I was asked to join a new committee to look at establishing it. That committee was put up before, an interim committee, and notably, quite a number of people on this new board were ex-Cattle Council. So it wasn't being left to independents alone. But the interesting thing was, sitting in that room with the Cattle Council guys, they're all saying there's got to be change. So there's a move for change. And I want to specify sitting here, I only got to know Jim since doing this, and this is a nice man, this is a genuine man. But I just don't think we're quite right on the same track together yet. But very genuine and wants to help the industry, as does Andrew. But I just feel that the structure that we've got hampers the whole thing. Just a few quick notes about that first meeting though. I've been trying to get my husband to travel for years anyway, because he can't take his cows and horses with him. So I decided to take myself off to France for 3 weeks. Lo and behold, what do you know, first meeting, they then asked me, and I booked that months ahead, they then asked me to join this interim committee And I said, can you hold on, can you just hold on for 3 weeks, please, till I get back? No, there's a great rush, we've got to get it done, it's got to be done. So I said, well, can I still come on to the committee as soon as I come back? Yes, cool. Then while I'm overseas in France, an email comes and says, there's a second committee meeting on, and I figured I've got to be cracked with it. I wrote back and said, listen here, it's taken us 15 years to get to this point. If you can't wait another 2 weeks till I'm back in Australia so that I can actually join this and be involved in this committee, I'm supposed to be on, there's something wrong, and to their credit they held up. But by the time I got to that second meeting, there were 2 decisions already made that I had no input in. One was, it wasn't going to be a democratically elected board of just you democratically electing board. It had to have state farm organisation members on it. And the second one was they were not looking at the $56 million. Now that frustrated the hell out of me, because in 10 years' time we'll be back at this same situation with Cattle Council cap in hand, because the 38 cents that they're looking for out of each dollar to help fund them will not be enough, and we'll be back in the same situation. I tried my hardest in those meetings. I want to make that also very clear. I might have been ABA and I might have some very strong opinions, but to my way of thinking, we were there to try and get somewhere in the industry. We were trying there to pull people together, and I didn't agree with quite a lot that's said in the room. I didn't agree with quite a lot of the structure, but I tried my hardest to work with them. The amazing thing was that after each of these meetings that we'd have, Cattle Council main board would then review what we'd written about how we proposed the new structure, and they would come back with a whole set of instructions for us to rearrange it. That's not going to suit us, we don't want it that way, we want you to do this, we want you to cut that out and add this in. And this is where I'm saying, with all due respect to them, the state farm organisations do not want to hand over that power. They want to keep that, and they want to keep themselves on board. And as a consequence of that, we end up with a board of 23 or more. It's just unwieldy. Anyway, at the final meeting, I'm thinking to myself, maybe you're just being negative, you just keep going with this little bit, maybe you'll get there. The final meeting, they said, right, we're going to put this out to everyone, we're not going to release it, we're going to put it to the Cattle Council board, we're going to fine tune it up, and then when we know, when we're confident of the thing, we'll release it. Well, it was gone and released by one of the state farm organisations anyway, early. But the whole idea was that we would get letters of support, or Jet and Cattle Council would get letters of support saying, yes, okay, we agree with the structure, we'll run with you. And there's at least 6 or 8 ABA directors in this room, and they will tell you that I got on that phone and I fought for that structure. I'm getting a bit upset here. So I really didn't want to fight for it. I didn't like it, but I fought for it because I thought if there's one way we can get our industry ahead, we've got to pull together, and maybe I've got to back down a hell of a lot more than I already have. But my directors stuck with me. Well, my directors didn't stick with me, they got stuck in me. And but the other thing was that poor old Jed and Andrew received a whole lot of other letters that no longer supported the structure either. So we're left in limbo again. We're in limbo again, guys. And that's why we need a lot more of you here, because you've got to understand this. You've got to understand this. Anyway. Yeah, after much deliberation, I'll say there were some directors who thought that, I'll actually discuss this in the ABA thing. So, here we are at this point now. So, can I have my 6 points up, please? We are at this point in the thing, this is what we are here today. And the one thing I want to say to all of you is, let's concentrate on what we want to do. I think basically in the room, we have people here who just want a democratically elected, transparent, so that we know what's going on, able to be spoken to, board that is democratically elected, so if they're not working for us, they go. We democratically get rid of them and put someone else on. That's the whole idea. So these are the points. This meeting is all about the input you put into it and where we get to from here. We've got to establish points as a united, agreed group. We've got to understand the difficult position that Jed and Andrew are in, but if we give them a lot more guidance, we probably can help them a lot more. At the end of the day, the ministers, whoever that will be, will act with the consensus that comes from the beef industry. And you can say that we're not going to get consensus with 120 people in the room, but really we need your support. We need, and then those of us who are trying to pull this all together to keep going forward. So all right, let's go on to what the ABA thinks, and let's keep it very simple. I mean, a good business is a very simple business, and this is the business of beef. So the board directly elected from the grassroots levy payers. So we're basing, each state gets an automatic representative, but I'm not talking about a state farm organisation. If they want to put up someone to stand for election, that's fine, we're happy with that. But then any states that have an extra more cattle than the initial 3 million gets another representative for each of the next 3 million. So New South Wales has 5.9 million, so they'll get another member on the board. And Queensland has 12 million, so we get 3 more members. So you end up with an 11 board members. Much more manageable than the 20 odd that we're talking about. We want votes based on a 1 vote per levy payer plus a levy-based register, which gives you, which is if you sell, 100 head of cattle, you're going to get 378 votes or something. So you not only have one register for yourself where it's just you as Joe Blow gets your vote, but Joe Blow sold 100 head, so he also gets 378 votes. This is hard for people to understand because they don't quite understand the voting system. But the reason we want to do this is, and again, there's no criticism of people, this is the way people think and it's the way they conduct their business. But if we've taken a vote right across Australia about how do we want the live export industry to keep going, and we can see what damage it's done to North Queensland everywhere by shutting it down. All of the small producers down south, or a lot of them, I can't say all, a lot of them would have said, yes, shut it down, it's cruel and inhumane, because their livelihoods do not depend on it, and they see it from an emotional point of view. So if we voted that way with just 1 vote per person, the hundreds of thousands of little producers down south would have outvoted a few larger things up north. So this is just a small example of why we want a 2-tiered vote. You would balance the 2 votes against each other and get a truer record of how people think across Australia. The new Cattle Producers Board will have control of the grass-fed levy currently running at 52 plus. And we've said that over and over and over again. This is the money that goes into MLA, and man, what happens to it? And I was talking to a minister one day, and it sort of hit him between the eyeballs because I said to him, Minister, you realise that $52 million is raised in $5 increments. It's a massive amount of money. And certainly it's a huge amount of money not to have any control of. Reserve seats will be available to state farm organisations on subcommittees, but not on board, unless they are voted in because they've picked up 50 signatures we're talking about, and they are good people and they want to be there. State farm organisations are essential on this board because it is a national beef industry, but it still has state-based issues. They are essential. Never, ever, ever assume I'm knocking state farm people. For board members to be put up for election, their nomination must have a minimum of 50 signatures. Now, that at first was 10 signatures. Well, anybody can get 10 signatures. But when you start going to your peers in the industry and saying, I'd like to stand on the board of the new beef producers board and represent you, you've got to convince 50 people that you're going to do a damn good job and you're up to the job. So that's why we want 50 signatures. Because we want it to be permission to come from you, we want the belief to come from you, we want the action, and the selection of the people to come from you. All grassroots levy payers will be automatically sent their votes, automatic voting rights. I didn't bring it with me. But I'd just like to show of hands, how many people in this room are members of Meat and Livestock Australia? Actually, that's surprising, because if we did it across Australia, it's pathetic. As we were saying before, we know there's about 190 odd thousand LPAs, or something like that, which means there should be 190,000 members of Meat and Livestock Australia, and there's 45,000 are of there with less than 10% vote, 4% of their votes. So this is the point I'm making. We're not even involving ourselves in the industry. Now, to get that grassroots levy payers vote, everyone's been coming up to us, including Jed and Andrew, Will, the Cattle Council of Australia, and saying you can't do it because it's an invasion of privacy. Rot. Will people get their votes given to them? 12 people get their votes given to them, and they then also say it'll be too hard to do, and how do you register everyone? Excuse us, everybody's got a PIC, everyone's got an LPA, everyone's got an LLIS number. You can't sell cattle without at least two of those things, the NLIS and the LPA. Even if you don't have a PIC, you've got your cattle running somewhere. Okay. So the point is, so that's been used to stonewall us about even getting this done, about getting our automatic vote sent to us. That's been used to stonewall us, and we've got to say no. Sorry, that's not on.
That's not true.
Sorry?
That's not true. I've actually had to look into that again last week.
Well, that's what's been said to me numerous times. Now, now, I'm just a little stressed by the fact that it's said to that Jed was talking about an advocacy group. This is not an advocacy group to me. It's a management group. It's a business management group. We're a business. Nothing to do with it. And all I'm going to say to you now is when you stand up to join this discussion after the other speakers have spoken and you want to raise points, always keep in the back of your mind the point of how this can benefit you specifically as a producer of cattle. What do you want, or how do you want to be represented? When you talk about things, think specifically about this. Because there are many who are enamored with MLA and good on them. That's fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. And many are frustrated with MLA and Cattle Council. Just keep in mind where you're aiming. Where are you going in the end? We have got both sides of the political fence listening to us. They have promised that if we can come as a united group, they will do something for us. Please, go from here when you finish with this and talk to any of other producers as well and tell them what you hear today. But today is a very important day. Thank you very much.